Okay. I'm Dean Shalhoub, president of the society. And in our long line of awesome programs, tonight's is Paula Lockhead, the presentation. And you've seen the clever name of it. What are you wearing? Dressing from the skin to the skirt in the 1830s. So we're talking quite a period of time here. First of all, nobody under age 10 here, right? That's appropriate for ages 10 and up. I guess if you're 11, you suddenly appreciate textiles and stuff. So as I said, our presenter is Paula Lockhead. She's a volunteer extraordinaire here and a board member here at the Society who has done lots of stuff. And she's an expert on textiles. She's tonight going to help unlock the secrets of fabric, fiber, and fashion preserved by artifacts held at the Society here. Then, as if putting together a puzzle, Paula will explain how the pieces all fit together to create the attire women would wear in order to achieve the charming image of the well-dressed lady in the emerging industrial era. A former teacher of family and consumer sciences, Paula is a dynamic speaker whose love of textiles is infectious. So, without further ado, we'll introduce Paula and be prepared to be entertained.
So thank you for all coming. Thank you, all of you, for coming. This is wonderful. My discussion tonight, or my dialogue tonight, is about fashion, but I'm also going to do a little bit about what's happening around the fashion. So we're going to start, I'm going to talk about from skin to skirt, so we're going to start with the skin. And I think it's pretty fair to say that in the early American era, cleanliness and bathing was not high on the list. You probably didn't take a bath much, but in terms of what you were concerned about was your four humors. Everybody was considered to have four basic humors, and you wanted to make sure, or one is particularly dominant, so you were either sanguine or you were melancholic. But if your humors get out of whack, with various bad miasmas, then you became ill. So what they were more concerned about was maintaining the stability of their humors, and you do that by sort of giving yourself an automatic armor of the oils in your skin. You're not going to disturb those. You're going to leave them as be, and so you're not going to do a lot of washing. You're going to make sure that you stay healthy in their mindset. Now, this has a variety of impacts. I mean, if you're living in a rural area, there's a lot of people, and there probably are a lot of significant miasmas, bad smells, basically. And if you inhale them, you're becoming ill. So some people actually in the cities would wear these rings that were very heavily filigreed with a little compartment. And in that compartment, you would put a piece of cloth that had been saturated with vinegar, so that when you passed through a miasmic area, you could smell the vinegar instead of inhaling the bad smells. In the urban areas, there was also another aspect of achieving wellness. In Philadelphia, Dr. Benjamin Rush, he was actually a signer of the Declaration of Independence, very forward-thinking, trained physician from Scotland. And he actually promoted the idea of, let's get a public city water system so that we can have some control over what's happening with these people. You know, maybe that's contributing to illness. I don't think they actually made any direct associations with that yet, but that was considered. Dr. Benjamin Rush also promoted the idea of public baths. So, you know, yes, please take a bath. In rural areas, it was a little bit different. people felt that there were minimal bad miasmas in the country. I mean, after all, we have good country fresh air, and therefore, why do we have to bathe? But if you are so inclined, you may want to do the old skillet method. So an old pot that had been relegated from the kitchen to the well area or to the area, the cistern of your farm, grab a scoop of water and just wash up your hands, your face, your arms, and your neck was a big one, your neck. This is probably very tepid at best water, certainly not hot, cold or tepid water, and there is no soap involved. A more common way of dealing with cleaning up was to just rub your skin with a coarse cloth and to take off the daily grime, but not the oils. You keep the oils on the skin. There are different socioeconomic aspects as well. If you are wealthy, you can probably afford servants who can haul that water for you. That's a different thing. If you are in different regions, there's a different attitude about cleanliness. The North is less apt to take a bath. It's colder. You know, you're talking cold water here. You don't have hot water. You don't use hot water. Hot water is only for maybe illness, but certainly for laundry. But anyways. In the South felt that they were more genteel, and therefore they were more apt to bathe. The early 1800s, you have a different attitude about bathing. Suddenly things start to change. This influence comes from France and England. And for the first time in 1829, the Tremont Hotel in Boston offers soap in the rooms and in the bathing areas. In 1833, a lady named Eliza Ferrar, who is a French wife of a Harvard professor, starts writing articles for women and how they should be concerned about your family's health, and you should be washing with soap. Now that's a hard sell, because in this era, soap is for laundry. And it's pretty tricky stuff. You make, typically, it was made at home, soap was made at home. And it requires fat, and it requires water, and it requires lye. And you usually make your soap in the springtime, because you want to make sure that you're using up the rest of your fats from your animals that you've slaughtered in the fall. So you don't want that to go rancid, so you're going to use the fats, you render that. And certainly if you're making soap in the springtime, your fireplace has been running all winter, and you have an abundance of ash. Wood ash is what makes the lye. So you pack the wood ash into a barrel and trickle water through it, and out comes lye, and then you combine, and you end up with a chemical process of saponification, and you've got soap. Different layers of this soap are different potencies. So maybe the top layer is a little bit more refined, and you might be able to get away with that with washing your body or your face. The bottom layers are pretty tough, and that's really strong soap, and that's what you're doing your laundry with. But what happens is the manufacturers, the soap manufacturers, now are in a conundrum, because they have always been promoting soap as laundry, and now suddenly they kind of have to do a turnaround. They've got to present it as, oh, you can use this on your face. Good luck. I've got a story of the Drinker family. This is a family who lived in Philadelphia in the late 1700s, early 1800s. And Mr. Drinker buys what's called this. It's called a shower bath. This is a later version, but he buys a shower bath, and he obviously is well off. He has servants who can help fill the cistern. At the top is a cistern for water. And so he uses that bath, and his daughter uses the bath, and the daughter's servant uses the bath. And the process is you fill the water at the top, and then you pull the string, and the water comes down and, encompasses your body. Interestingly enough, the wife will not use that. she felt that she had been ill in the season, and no, I'm not using it. Takes her a full year to decide that she is going to use the bath. She's going to pull the string. And in her diary afterwards, she notes that this is the first time that she had been immersed in water in 27 years. Later on, Mr. Drinker also purchases a bathtub. And of course, he has the servants to fill it, and it's filled once. And there is a protocol for using the tub. So he goes first, and then the wife goes, and then the son, and then the daughter, and then the servants. And again, the wife notes in her diary that at the end of that, the water was well full. And you kind of wonder, with what? With what? Anyways. Okay. So I'm going to, no, not yet. I'm going to go on to the first article of clothing. And the first article of clothing we have is a chemise. And this is a chemise or a shift. And this is a shift from another era. This is from probably the late 1700s, maybe early 1800s. But if you have it, you're going to wear it. This is from our Fanny Morrison collection, and her family came from around the Hanover, New Hampshire area and into Vermont, and they actually they grew flax, and flax is what makes linen. So this could very well be her family's fabric, and it is made of linen. Of course, it's entirely handmade. Now, the interesting thing about linen, particularly white linen, linen, when it's processed, is not white. It is either beige or sometimes gray. To get white linen requires an awful lot of steps, and some of them are not pleasant. You're dealing with dung, you're dealing with urine, you're dealing with lye. It's tricky stuff to get white linen. But white linen always has a connotation of purity and wealth and sophistication. Another notice from a lady who had slaves down south. Whenever she referred to her women slaves, she referred to them as wenches. However, when these women dressed in their white linen dresses to go to market, to do jobs or errands, she referred to them as women. So there is a very well-perceived societal connotation of what you're wearing. Another thing about linen is that, of course, it's the first thing against your body. It's considered your second skin. And if you are wearing linen and you go into public with just your chemise, that's tantamount to being naked. Your second skin, you're naked. So that brings me to this portrait. This is the portrait of Paul Revere that was done by John Copley. John Singleton Copley. And the date is 1768. But that concept of second skin has been around for a while. When Copley captured this image of Paul Revere, and his family, Paul Revere's family, saw this portrait, they were insulted because all they saw was that Paul Revere was in his shirt sleeves. He's a wealthy man. A wealthy man would never be without his frock coat. Here he is in his shirt sleeve. He's naked. How dare Copley do that to him? What the Paul Revere's family never saw was that those sleeves on his shirt are voluminous. That takes a lot of fabric. That's a wealthy man. What they don't see is that Paul Revere is also wearing a beautiful brocaded waistcoat with lovely buttons. I mean, this is a man of wealth. He's holding one of his beautiful silver teapots. This is a man of talent. The family doesn't see that. They only understand that social implication of you're wearing your second skin. And I understand that this thing was relegated to their attic for years until finally someone sold it to the Museum of Fine Arts. And that's where it is today. But, there's that concept that's going on. You have a lot of connotation of what fabric is. I'm going to go through the steps of, I'll show that in a minute. The steps of producing linen. When you process linen, you actually plant the flax seeds in the spring in New England, late April, early May. And by the time, and you plant them close together because you want a tall plant, straight. Linen is derived from the stem of flax plants. That's what you're gathering up, the stems, so you want them long and straight. So by the middle of July, you can pull those plants from the ground, and you pull them. You don't cut them because that length of fiber goes the entire length of the stalk, even down to the roots. And so you want as long a fiber as you can get. So you pull the plants from the ground and you dry them. And after you've dried them, you do something called rippling. Now, a rippling comb is going to, as you draw the plants through, it's going to remove the seeds, and you either save the seeds for planting next year, or you save them to process into linseed oil. Later on, it was processed into linoleum. There's many uses to flax and linen. So then, now you have to go to the next step, which is called retting, because the bark on the outside of the plant and the inner core are sticking to those fibers, and you have to release all those layers. So you ret the fiber, and it's fairly stinky to do this, and it's really a skill set, because if you ret it too much, you're rotting the fiber. If you don't ret it enough, you're not releasing, the connective tissues. So then you remove that, and you take it out again and dry it, and the next step is to break it. So you want to actually crunch up the stems of the plant so that you're starting to release those fibers. Chomp, 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 basically. Then you do something called scutching. And scutching is basically hitting those plant stems with a wooden knife so that you're taking away the bark and you're releasing the fibers. Now you're beginning to see the fibers. Then you do something called hackling. And hackling is a series of pins, usually 3 or 4 sets of pins. The first set are fairly wide apart. The second set is closer together, and the third set is very fine. So as you draw the fiber through, you're refining it. This is what you end up with. This is a strick of flax. What does it look like? Hair. It looks like hair. Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair so I may climb that flaxen stair. What color hair did Rapunzel have? She was blonde. Okay. Also, you knew what flaxen hair was. The fibers that are left in the hackle, those are usually shorter fibers. They're called tow. A child with short blonde hair is called a towhead. It's because of these textile terms that people understand what you're referring to. It becomes part of your language. Another aspect of hackling is that these hackles are nasty things. And so if somebody gets their hackles up, they're really mad at you. Then, you're in trouble. So that all of this stuff is giving you information about, it's integrated into your life. Another thing about fabric, now if this girl had one shift, that's great. Hopefully she's got another one. But if she wants a new shift, it is going to take her over a year to acquire that garment. And as a result, fabric is extremely valuable. Analysis of historic inventories. When someone died, passed away, the family would give an inventory of what the person owned, and usually it was categorized by the value of the item. The most valuable item was, of course, gold and silver, your investments. The second most valuable item would be your land and your cattle and your house. The third most valuable item you would own would be your fabrics. You would will your fabrics to people. You'd will your sheets, you'd will your jackets, because it takes so long to acquire fabric. It's a hugely valuable commodity. That's really important to remember. I mean, if you think about it, old bureaus, they have locks and keys. You're locking up you don't want somebody walking away with your goods. What else? When Janice and I examine artifacts here at the museum, a lot of times we'll be looking at an old garment and we'll think, what is that old sewing line? You can see these little ghost stitches of what had been stitches. You can see sometimes a seam or a pleat that had not really pressed out, and yet here it is in another garment, and it's in the wrong location. I mean, it has no, a pleat has no right being halfway down wherever it is, And we're thinking, of course, when you had fabric, you reused it. And so the garment that we're presently looking at was probably in another generation a different garment, and it has been repurposed. So those are all concepts that have been very much part of people's thinking. Oh, I'll just go a little bit about laundry. Can you do the next one, please? Oh, of course, I'm sorry, I forgot about spinning it. Once you spin flax, it is called linen. As soon as you spin it, it's called linen. And then you weave it, et cetera, et cetera. In terms of your laundry, it's a miserable task. That is one of the few times that you are using hot water. And it's dangerous. It's heavy, it's dangerous. It's, the soaps are caustic. I mean, it's a nasty job. And typically when you are doing your laundry, you're marking your clothing because you want to make sure that, say this girl has 3 shifts. She wears shift number 1, it's marked with her initials and usually a number. Shift number 1 is worn the first week. She throws that in the laundry. The next week she wears shift number 2. The next week she wears shift number 3. The 4th week she wears shift number 1 again. So you're rotating these shifts, so you're wearing them out evenly. Another thing is that laundry is usually done on Monday. And there were nursery rhymes that little children learned about the days of the week, and it always involves something about laundry. Monday's wash day, Tuesday's iron, and you just integrated this into your thinking. And you're hoping like heck that laundry day is a sunny day. Because if not, you've got to find a way to make sure that those clothes are drying. Because if they don't dry, particularly with linen, if it's not drying, it's going to start to mildew. And then that's going to start to deteriorate, and a miserable job. I was hearing a documentary, I think it may have been done by the WPA, I'm not sure, WPA in the early, mid-30s. And they talked about, they interviewed women who obviously had been in another generation. I mean, there could have been women conceivably who could have been from the 1850s. And they asked them what was the most significant invention in their lives that made their lives better. More than half of those women said the invention of the washing machine. This is an early washing machine. Big thing, big. The next thing I'm going to tell you about, let me go on, because I can get stuck in things. I'm going to go on to the drawers. So you've got your chemise on, or your shift, and then you're going to put on your drawers. These are drawers. They're made of cotton. This is a new invention. You didn't wear drawers before about the 1820s. Made of cotton. What do you notice about these? They're basically 2 legs and a waistband. And this form of underwear for women persisted clear up through the 20th century until the advent of indoor plumbing. You've got all these layers to deal with. You sure as heck don't want to have to deal with lifting something up and then taking something down. So these are just very easy to use.
It almost looks like a blouse.
It's very wide. They're very modest. I mean, there's so much of them. The next,
Under the chemise?
yes, you put it under your chemise. After you have on your drawers, you're going to put on your stockings. Now, these are stockings these are probably her best stockings because these are silk stockings. And these stockings are probably made on a flat knitting frame. A flat knitting frame is something, it was an invention that probably was around in Elizabeth I's time. So she was, 15 something or other to 16 something or other. So it's a very old machine, but it made you a flat piece of knitting. Now you're talking a one-dimensional item that has to be transformed into a 3-dimensional tube. So you have a wide area that's going to be your thighs, narrows down to be your knees, comes out a little bit again to be your calves, goes down severely to be your ankle, and then you've got to do this funky thing to get the heel. So after this comes off the frame, you have to stitch up these stockings, and it ends up with the form of a stocking. You'll notice that what's also on these stockings is a thing called a clock, this little decoration here. Clocks in this era are strictly decorative, but in the really old days, clocks were functional. They were like a little triangle piece that helped to form the heel and then make the turn to be the heel and the foot of the stocking. So these are her probably very good stockings. You can see the seam up the back. They would be tied up at the top of her thigh with a ribbon or a tape. Her other stockings are probably cotton or maybe wool. When women always had stockings in their mending basket. You always had stockings. You didn't throw them. Today I throw them out. You didn't throw them out. You actually you mended them in a very special way. You didn't just draw the edges together and do an overcast stitch, because that's going to leave a bump. So you had to sort of mold them together. Anyways, the next thing are her little shoesies, and these are her little shoesies. These are lovely little silk shoesies. They are from France by way of England, and they were imported. They have a little square toe, which was very fashionable in the 1830s, and a little fancy on the top. Her everyday shoes, these are her fancy shoes, and these are the little ribbons that would tie them onto her ankle. Her everyday shoes would probably be more substantial, maybe a darker leather. If you notice, these shoes don't have a left or a right. Lefts and rights didn't come in until probably after the Civil War. So these are her little shoes. If you didn't make shoes at home, you would always get them made. If you were going to get shoes made, you're going to a cordwainer. If you're going to get shoes repaired, you're going to a cobbler. So these are little shoesies. The next item. Pardon me?
What size foot is it?
Yeah, isn't it tiny? I know it.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I don't know. It's a lady's shoe, so it's a real shoe. We're going on to the next item. Now here is, this is a corset, and this is of the era. This is of the 1830s, and it's made of cotton. Cotton is coming into America now. After about 1821, cotton is produced commercially in America, and it is popular. People love cotton.
Cotton is king.
Cotton is, yes it is. Yes it is. This is made from a sort of a jean fabric. It's kind of it's a sturdy little cotton fabric. The lining of it is, I think, a linen, but it's entirely handmade. The wider straps is very much part of what this is. It would lace in the back, so unless you're very double jointed, you probably need someone to help you put it on. If you notice, there are all of these little designs and decoration on it, and that's actually to help form the silhouette of what the garment is that you're going to wear. It's all of the underpinnings that you wear that determine the silhouette of the garment. So this particular one has all of these little, they're little channels that are filled with a cord. And that makes it a little bit more sturdy in different areas. And if you notice, the front of this is actually a large channel. And that large channel is you slip into the large channel a thing called a busk. This is a busk. So it goes down inside this channel. It makes you stand up straight. It separates your breasts, so you're looking pretty fancy. Busks, the research that I had done said that busks probably came from Italy during the Renaissance. Before the Renaissance, clothing was fairly formed. It was form-fitted. You didn't really have a silhouette of fashion. So with the Renaissance, Italy is a huge producer of silk and fashion. And so as they're sending out their silk and their fashion, they're also sending out what's constructing the fashion. So here's a busk. And at this particular time, though, in the 1830s, busks are love tokens. Men would carve them for their lovers or for their sweethearts. They could be made of wood, they could be made of horn, they could be made of ivory. I've seen some busks that are scrimshaw busks that sailors had made, and there are mermaids on them, and there are hearts. And basically it's saying, you know, this busk sits over your heart, and this is where I want to be. So, the next item in the list is to put on a petticoat. Now this is, again, of the era. It is, it's a full-length petticoat. Petticoats kind of more evolved into just a waisted thing. But this is from the 1830s. It buttons up the back, it's fairly full. If you notice, it has, again, those lines of stitching with the cording. And that kind of, that helps not only with wearing, you know, it makes it more durable, but it also adds to the silhouette of what your fashion is, your garment. It's going to stick out a little bit, and you're going to have a little bit of fullness. This has been very well worn. This is an item that has been well worn. I mean, this is some bluing stains on it. It has some blood stains. I mean, this thing has been well worn. If you notice, it also has a big tuck in it. So evidently, somebody shorter than the original wearer wore this. So we're making good use of this. This is replaced buttons. There are about 3 different kinds of buttons on this. You know, what?
Over the corset?
Yes, because it would smooth out the lines of the corset.
And still everything over the chemise?
Yes. The chemise is what's next to your skin. That's your second skin. Yeah. Okay, and then after you have your chemise, you can go on to, after you have your petticoat, thank you. You have your dress. And this is a lovely little dress from the 1830s. It has, if you notice, it's just beyond the Regency era. The Regency was that empire with those marvelous gowns like in Bridgerton. This one is a different silhouette totally. This had, initially in the early 1830s, it had these big gigot sleeves, the big, huge, puffy sleeves. Those gigot sleeves were kind of tamed down. This is probably from about 1837. They were tamed down. It's the same sleeve, but it has been pleated down and then stitched down, so it gives a little bit different appearance. It also is a very long sleeve. They're called idiot sleeves.
Idiots.
I know. Yeah, very much off the shoulder. So maybe she would have worn a tucker underneath, which was a kind of a sheer dicky that had a little bit of a fluff and a decoration at the collar. And it's not quite at the waist, but the back has some fullness to it. She might have worn a little bit of a bum roll to make it stick out in the back. And she would have worn multiple petticoats, not only this petticoat, but several others with it. This garment is made of printed fabric. This is huge because fabric is being created in America now. This is all natural dyes because this is before synthetic dyes. But you've got the opportunity to make fabric in a printed form, and people crave it. The Kachiko mills in Dover, New Hampshire were huge for making printed fabric. And it's printed on something called a roller printer. Roller printer is something that rolls, the fabric rolls over these cylinders and gets the print as it rolls over the cylinder. That's a huge change in what was happening. It makes fabric more affordable, more colorful. You can do several different colors of roller printer. Before that, before roller printing, you had block printing. This is one of my favorite pictures. This is from the American Textile History Museum. And I think these guys are right. This is a later picture. This is probably from the 1870s. And I don't know what these guys were thinking. I mean, they're still wearing their shirts from the Civil War. And you can just see him. You can just imagine him sitting by a fire in the midst of this horrid war, thinking, if we ever get out of here alive, I'm telling you, we're going to start a block printing business. And if somebody else had thought about it, they would have said, no, what's the matter with you? Block printing is obsolete. And here these guys are with their block print, proud as punch. I mean, look at them. But to do block printing, you had to, carve it out, smear it with a color, put it down on the fabric, And then if you want another color, you've got to carve another block and put another color. And boy, you better hope that you're registering it in the right place. Because just, anyways, these are my guys. I love them. Anyways, the fabric that would have bought, this fabric would have been about 22 cents a yard. That's a lot of money because a mill girl is only making about $3 a week. And $1 a month of that is taken out for room and board. So if she's going to have a dress, this is a very special item, very special garment. You wouldn't have washed your dress as often as you wash your underclothes. So that's just food for thought. You would wash your
How
underclothes.
is do you put the dress over your head? Is there,
Yes, this is hooks and eyes, yeah. This dress has hooks and eyes.
I knew it wasn't zipper.
Yeah. No zippers. But this is all hooks and eyes down the back. And she would have had somebody help her hook it together. Yeah, this is a beautiful little dress.
Pockets?
No pockets, no pockets, no pockets. Pockets come around a little bit later. They start showing up around 1850. So what you would have worn is, if you had planned ahead, you would have had a slit in your petticoat, you would have had a slit in your dress, and you would have had a pocket. This is a pocket. And remember I told you that people would mark their clothing? This is marked, but this is written out with the person's name. So you would have worn this at your waist, just probably over your corset. So you could slip your hand through all of those slits in the garment and get whatever it is that's in your pocket that you want to carry. This girl doesn't have a slit in her pocket, so she probably would have carried a reticule, which is just a little pouchy purse. What she's going to put on next, if she's going out in the winter time for a sleigh ride, say, she's going to wear this coat. This is a beautiful survivor. This is a beautiful, beautiful garment. It's made from, it's a beautiful piece. Yes, it's a huge amount. This garment, this fabric is actually constructed like you do a quilt. It has this face fabric, which has a significant amount of silk in it. I don't know if it's all silk. Did we decide that, Janice, if it's all silk? We don't know.
If we looked at it close enough to
Yeah.
really.
But it has silk, and then it is lined, the next layer is a very finely combed wool fleece. And then it is with a cotton backing. So you have all of these layers. It's going to give you some nice warmth. It is gathered in the back, but then it is straight in the front. And this garment actually has all kinds of little pieces, little stitches on it. You can see it up here. If you come up to look at it afterwards, you'll see that there's all these little stitches that basically hold the layers of fabric together so that the stuffing doesn't slip down to the bottom. And it's beautifully handmade. You've got all this interest here. Again, you have that bottom part that is quilted, so you've got some roundness to it. This is a beautiful, beautiful garment.
And wait, so it drapes.
Yes, yes.
How heavy is it?
It's not heavy because the fiber is, it's not as light as a down coat, but it's not unbearably heavy, but it would be very beautifully warm. Silk is a very warm fiber as well as wool, and so they took advantage of that. They're going to do the best they can. This hat that she may have worn is constructed in the same way as the coat. It's a layer of silk, it's a layer of cotton, and in between is that wool batting. So she's going to be warm. She's going to be nice and warm. And then she has a muff. And this is, she's missing her ribbons. It'd be more going close to her face. Then she has her muff, and this is about the size of a muff from that era. I was doing some research. Muffs are in different sizes, like sometimes they're these little teeny tiny things, but this is the era for this kind of a muff. And it is, again, made that same way. You have the fur, you have stuffing, and you have a lining. And so she's going to be nice and warm on her sleigh ride. I think that it's not bear. I think that actually this is
Shaved
beaver. I think it's beaver. Yeah, it's dyed. Yeah. But anyway, so there you have it. That's my dressed up lady. She's got all of this good stuff going. Thank you, Mary. Any questions?
Okay, so if a servant woman girl gets up first and has to get the house ready, and she's not double jointed, how is she getting her corset?
There's probably somebody else helping her too. So I'm sure there's probably more than one. For sure. All right. There are also we have seen pictures at the. Both Janice and I used to work at the Textile Museum, and we had seen pictures of women in the 1815 maybe, and they had these strange pictures, and when you analyze, you thought, what the heck is going on here? These women were actually having their hands in the back because the back part of the dresses at that particular era were so narrow that you couldn't put your arms to the front. And so to put your gloves on, you actually had your hands in the back and you put your gloves on, and then you walked out of But, so sometimes these women may have been double jointed. Who knows? I mean, yes.
I was just going to add a comment that from experience, I wear these clothes on a regular basis.
You do.
Not the originals, but
Yes.
reproductions. And as someone who's been doing it off and on for 30 years, I get asked how long it takes me to get dressed by myself with no help. And I can go from modern street clothes to fully corseted 5 petticoats, a dress with a smize in about 13 minutes.
Wonderful. Thank you.
It's easier with help. But if you're used to these clothing, it's just, you're in a rush, the bus is picking the kids up, you're gonna get dressed fast, and they can do it then too.
Very cool. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Great. Now, did you have a question? Yes. Thank you for raising your hand.
So what happens when someone gets pregnant?
Yeah, well, your corset is just looser. You just have it looser, and you pretty much have that same sort of silhouette. You try and keep the same silhouette as what is in fashion. You look a little chubbier.
That's it, huh? No special clothes.
No,
and no
they were nursing dresses. I think they were nursing dresses. I think I have seen those.
Society that wasn't mentioned.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, you try and keep that same silhouette. Another question?
The silk stockings, were they made here in the U.S. or were they like China or France?
No, I'm sure we had a silk industry. So I wouldn't be surprised if they're made here. I'm sure some of the lovely ones were probably imported. Those would probably be wonderful to have.
Became very rare during the war.
Well, during World War II, yeah, because they rationed silk for parachutes.
How are these garments cared for here and stored?
Yeah, we're very careful with our garments. I know you see me without gloves on, but my hands are clean. We're always washing our hands. So we don't wear gloves a lot. We do make sure that they're clean. We also make sure that if the garment can hang on a hanger, a padded hanger, these are acid-free. This is just washed muslin that's not going to, gas off. So we hang them on padded hangers, and if we feel that the garment is not strong enough to hang, we'll pad it out in acid-free boxes. We have those large acid-free boxes over there with acid-free paper, and we fold them and buffer them and cushion them so that they're not strained. We try not to strain the seams, and we try to mimic the silhouette of what it is, so you have the whole thing looking like, if you open the box, it's going to look like it should look.
Is it climate controlled?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. The whole museum is climate controlled, yeah. We're very lucky.
So if you have your chemise, your first skin, and you're wearing, say she owned 3 of them, so she rotated those, do you have any idea how long it would last? I mean, is flax or linen a long-lasting?
Linen is a very durable fiber. Yeah, it's a very durable. I mean, also you're going to keep your undergarments as clean as you can, and they do wear out. I mean, you're going to patch them. One of the most interesting garments that we had at the museum when we worked there is we had a man's shirt. That would also be his underwear, and they had it all displayed. in a case. And if you looked at that shirt very carefully, you realized that the entire front of that shirt, from the waist down, had been replaced. Because, you know, yeah, you know,
Yeah.
so you're going to repair your clothes until you can't repair them anymore. And then you're not going to throw that fabric out. It's going to be utilized for something else. You know, either a smaller child's clothes or something, you know, yeah. So you try and get the best way you can out of them.
Yeah, the shoes, how long would they last? And what were they made of?
Well, they're made of kid. These are made of kid, and they're made of silk. You wouldn't get them wet. You wouldn't want to get these wet. These are dancing shoes. These are your fancy party shoes. Your other shoes are going to be more durable. And if it's wet out, you're probably going to wear something like called pattens, which are like, they're like shoes on stilts. And you'd wrap those, you'd put those on underneath, you know, you'd put your foot in the patten and you'd walk in the pattens, so you're not going to get them wet.
This might be for the next lecture, but considering I'm a citizen in Nashua, New Hampshire, you know, we're talking 1870s, right?
For this one, no, we're talking 1830s.
Oh, okay, that is. Oh, okay. So, all right, anyway, that person being wealthy is not going to make their own clothes. I'm assuming like the people who don't have any money. But where are they buying these from? The bigger cities? Like
There were seamstresses. I mean, there were seamstresses, sure, yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. They were not really manufactured clothes yet. You would have to either make them or have a seamstress make them. Yeah.
What's the oldest piece of clothing you have here in the museum?
Well, we're actually thinking that this might be the shift that we have.
When did dyeing come into?
Oh, dyeing has been around for ever. But natural dyes, the first synthetic dyes were created in, I think, 1850. 1850. And
With the Germans.
the first, Perkins was the man who created the first dye, and it was purple, believe it or not.
Did they use berries and roots?
Oh, yes. Oh, sure. Yeah, yeah. Like this one probably has, I don't know for sure what this dye is, but the dye stuffs that could be in this, you could have, indigo will give you blue. This is a greeny color, so I'm really not sure what this is. Reds and browns can be from something called madder. You've got all different kinds of natural dyes, and they are beautiful. They're brilliant. They're not dull like you think. Oh, a natural dye has no color to it. They're very beautiful.
When was the sewing machine available to American sewers?
Oh, geez, I think they started in 1840. I think.
1840s?
Yeah, I think it was a funny little machine. It did mostly a chain stitch. Was it Elias Howe? Yeah. He was a Nashua man. Elias Howe. He was a Nashua man. He developed a sewing machine here in Nashua. We have one at the Abbott Spalding House, actually. A house sewing. Well, I thank you very much for coming. Join us.